Hello and welcome to Real Men Feel. I'm your host, author, coach, and healer, Andy Grant. You can visit theandygrant.com for more information about me. Real Men Feel exists to remind men that they are human beings and have the right to experience and express all of their emotions. We have conversations that most men are not having, but that all men can benefit from. Men and women deal with emotions differently. You may have discovered that, but we all have them. And any man who believes that stuffing and denying their emotions are the path to happiness and a successful life, well, not my experience, and it's not the experience of any man that I've ever talked to. One of the greatest emotions, one of the greatest painful emotions a man might ever experience is one of being betrayed. That's what we're going to look at today. Today is part 2 of Recovering From Betrayal, and we are focusing on men being betrayed by women. My returning guest is Vanessa Cardenas. She is your trusted advisor for Betrayal and Transformation. Vanessa is a highly experienced C-suite executive, mentor, coach, and speaker with a degree in industrial psychology. She's also the founder and CEO of Understanding Ear, where she empowers individuals and groups to heal from betrayal, amplifying their authenticity, and how to find love and happiness on their terms. Welcome back to Real Men Feel, Vanessa.
Oh, thank you so much, Andy. Oh, I can't wait to jump in and get started. What you do is absolutely amazing. So thank you so much for the space, because this truly is a needed space, especially for men, to know that they have somewhere safe, that they can just be real and be themselves. So thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, and that's a great thing to point out, because the title of, I'm not saying that if you're not a man, if you don't like the real and being real is, real, genuine, honest, being yourself. I'm not saying that you're not a man if you aren't, willing to cry in public. There's no emotional disclaimers or containers that I believe in. But with that said, so you shared a lot of valuable information just a few weeks ago, episode 301, Did You Betray Your Partner? And we focused on men wanting to heal their relationship after being unfaithful to their partner. So today we're doing the flip side. So how different is the experience of recovering from betrayal when you are the betrayed party?
Yes. Well, keep in mind that I can't speak from the male point of view because I am not male. So I am speaking on behalf of the clients that I have worked with, and there have been quite a number of them. And initially, when I started out years ago, I really focused on women. And it wasn't so much men. A lot of the women would say, oh, could you speak to my husband? And that was kind of interesting. And I started to do so again from the perspective of the man cheating on his wife. Then, because of what I do, it started to kind of turn. And it was a very interesting dynamic, but it was more underground, meaning if you've ever seen the movie Hitch with Will Smith and Kevin James. Okay. Hitch is, this underground guy that helps men, date and get women. And it turns out that, he works with Kevin Hart, and Kevin Hart's woman that he's attracted to, he follows Hitch's advice and everything else. And she's not really into them, but anytime he's himself and he's real, that's what attracts her to him. And I always found that movie really, really fascinating on that level. But then I also started finding it interesting on the other level of how Hitch is kind of underground. He gets one referral from another. He doesn't advertise. He's not all over the place. He doesn't say, oh, I'm the love guru. You can come find me and I'll help you find women. No, it's very, very underground. And I started to feel that way as well, that my men that I was working with who had been betrayed felt a lot of shame, and they were very quiet about it and very reserved about it. Whereas women just want to scream it from the mountaintops. They want to take on a little bit of a role of victim. Well, men never take the role of victim. No, they're men of steel or they're velvet, but they're still, there, and they're firm, and they have all of these limiting beliefs of how they are supposed to be. And when they are betrayed, there is a cascading situation that starts to happen for them. So I want to set the parameters, kind of similar to what we did last time on episode 301. But I want to make sure that we have a nice, clear understanding of what we're going to do. You did a fantastic episode. It was episode 149. And this is where you actually, Andy, got really real and you got really vulnerable. And I thank you for that, because most men will not be that vulnerable. You not only were you vulnerable, you let your story out for everyone to hear, for the whole world to hear. And when that happened, that was such an amazing thing. So I want to touch on that, because for the men that are listening, if you find yourself in this situation, you need to go back to 149, episode 149, and listen to that. That is for men that are in an emotionally abusive relationship. It's an aggressive relationship. It's maybe a secret relationship. People don't know about it. There are wounds that are inflicted on you from your woman, whether that's emotional or actually physical. And you start to question your reality. Like, is this really going on? Am I in this situation? And then you have such a deep sense of shame. And that shame can live with you for years. It can just hold on to you. And Andy, I have to thank you so much for being vulnerable and expressing that out, because now we see how you are today. We see that growth, and that is what provides hope for everyone, to see that progression of moving forward. So thank you for that. You had another episode, and that was episode 226. You had a wonderful woman, Ann Silvers, on, and she said that abuse, okay, we're still sticking with abuse for the moment, isn't always just one direction, with a man being mean and a woman being victimized. And that was very, very powerful in and of itself. So if you're a man and you're finding yourself in that type of situation where you're in an abusive situation and now you have been betrayed, you need to listen to those two episodes, because those two episodes will help you. For the purposes of today, we are not talking about any type of abuse. We are talking about a strict situation where a husband and wife who have been married for quite a bit of time, the man gets blindsided by finding out that his wife has cheated on him. She has betrayed him. So I'd like to bring to mind, because when I started thinking and we were talking about doing part 2, the flip side of what we spoke about last time, I started to think back to all of my male clients. And I actually needed to start kind of with my first one, because he was the most memorable. His name was John. We're going to change his name, him and his wife. My husband and I met John and Jane at a gallery showing. Okay. And that's where you kind of mingle around and you have your wine and you're looking at the artwork, and everybody kind of stands and looks in deep contemplation and so forth. Well, the woman whose gallery showing this was, she knew what I did. And she was so excited to see me. I'm kind of memorable with the pink hair, and she runs up to me and gives them kisses and whatnot. And then she pulls in another couple, and she's like, oh my gosh, you have got to meet Vanessa and her husband. Vanessa is a betrayal recovery specialist. You've got to talk to her. She's like amazing what she does. And blah, blah. She was like so excited. And then she darted off, leaving me and my husband with a couple we have never met. And they both kind of look at us. And I could tell immediately they were very uncomfortable, like really uncomfortable. And I was like, nice to meet you. As Evelyn had introduced me, I'm a trusted advisor for Betrayal and Transformation. And, and then they both look at my husband almost immediately, because that's usually the response. And he nods and he goes, yeah, I screwed up, but this is what she is now, and look at her, isn't she amazing, type of thing. So we have a good laugh about it and whatnot. So the woman, Jane, just couldn't wait to get away. Like, she just could not wait to get away from us. And she's like, oh, I'm going to go get a drink. So she moved off, and I kind of shooed my husband away. I'm like, you need to go as well. So me and John are standing in front of this piece of art. I say nothing. He says nothing. And then he clears his throat. And he says, do you work with men? And I said, of course. Okay. I'm going to need to talk to you. Okay. You can find me at understandingear.com. That's all I said. No business card, no nothing. Men, as do women, decide what they're going to do, in life, Here's the information. If you need me, you can reach out to me. The very next day, my phone rings and it's John. And he's really, really struggling to talk. Give space. That's what we do. We give space. And I'd like to actually refer to wonderful, you know this from Eric Edmonds, Viktor Frankl, his Men's Search for Meaning book. Oh. As you can see, it's weathered. I've read this numerous times. This is brilliant. This is absolutely brilliant. And as Eric Edmonds said, on the ski lift up, you listen to it on audio. And then on the way down on your skis, you listen to Led Zeppelin. Absolutely, very much so. But this book, amazing. And he specifically mentions the quote that I love is between the stimulus and the response, there is space. There is space. And in that space is the power to choose your response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. That's huge. So here I am on the phone, 10 minutes of silence with John. Never once did I say, are you still there? Nothing of the sort. I could hear him breathe. I could hear him sob. I could hear him breathe. I could hear him clear his throat. And he said, why? Why did this happen to me? I still don't know anything about the situation. I don't know whether he was the betrayed or the betrayer. I don't know if, in fact, betrayal is even a situation. I'm assuming so, but I still don't know. And we winded up having a 4-hour conversation. Why? Because he just needed to get it out. He needed to talk to somebody about what was going on within him. It was trapped. It was paralyzing him. And of course, once he got it all out, then all the questions start flooding. And the questions are common, and they've been common across the board. So why? Why did she cheat? So we're going to go over the 6 common reasons why a woman cheats. The first is intimacy. Women tend to cheat for intimacy. Men tend to cheat for sex. There's a difference between sex and intimacy. Okay? Intimacy has that vulnerability aspect to it. It has that just love and just peace. So why did she cheat? Number 1 is intimacy, lack of intimacy. Number 2, and this is the same for men and women, they want to leave the relationship, but they feel like they can't leave the relationship. It's kind of similar into The Godfather when his wife wants to leave and he's not letting her go. So what does she do? She aborts his son. She's like, I know that you will never, ever be able to forgive me for that. She was right. He took him a long time to forgive her for that. But wanting out of the relationship, that's a big one. Then there's low self-esteem. Suddenly a man pays attention to your wife, and suddenly she feels that. She feels that attraction. She feels that false sense of intimacy. Then there's lack of female support. Yes, females need support, just like men need support of other men. That's why team sports are so popular. It's men getting together. It's women getting together to do sports. It's that camaraderie. Without that camaraderie, without that support, women are lost. Same with men. Then there's an unrealistic expectation. Yeah, an unrealistic expectation. I'm sorry. Disney destroyed it for so many couples. Very much so. The white horse and the knight and the chivalry and the whole 9 yards. Yeah, an unrealistic expectation.
So unrealistic expectation of relationships from day one.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Or as they are supposed to evolve, because sometimes women who come from a long line of like successful marriages, and see their grandparents and their parents and their aunts and their uncles, and they have large families, and the word like divorce is never in there, type of thing. And they just have this unrealistic expectation, especially if they do have a lot of friends. We go back to the previous one, that they have a lot of friends and all their friends have these happy marriages and everything else. So there's this unrealistic expectation that they have. And then the last one is just being lonely or feeling neglected. Like sometimes we just get into complacency where it's just, husband comes home and dinner's on the table and we watch TV and we do this, and it gets routine. And maybe for the husband, he enjoys that. He enjoys that closeness that way. For him, it feels like closeness. For her, it feels like a rut. She wants to go out. She wants to be, taken out on date night. She wants to be shown off, whatever it might be. Now, I need to make sure that I'm very crystal clear. These reasons why are absolutely not an excuse. Not at all. I do not advocate betraying on your partner for any reason. If you want out of the relationship, you talk to your partner. You communicate with your partner. You don't do an action that completely destroys them. It's completely unnecessary.
Right.
It truly
all of these reasons resulting to actions are an avoidance of a difficult conversation.
Exactly. That's exactly it. So what does the man feel? Okay. And again, I can't speak for men because I'm not a man, but I can speak on behalf of my clients. The first thing is shock. Like, what? Then there's confusion. Like, what? Huh? Then there's heartache. Then there's rage. There's sadness. And then they're territorial. Who was it? Because as I mentioned before, we talked about it previously, there's a great website. It's Truth About Deception Foundation. Truth About Deception Foundation. And what they have done over the years is they have compiled information regarding deception, regarding infidelity, regarding cheating. They have 95,000 responses. This is great wealth of information. And they indicated that 90% of the women that cheat have an emotional connection with whomever they cheated with. It's emotional first. 71% of the men, it's a one-night stand. It's physical. 43% of the women who cheat with somebody that they both know. Whereas males, it's only 22% that they both know, meaning 78% are strangers. Strangers. The wife doesn't know him. Most of the time, he doesn't know her either, type of thing. But here we are where a man realizes that his wife is cheating, he suddenly becomes territorial as well. Like, who is it? And it's not something where it's not the similar situation where two guys get into a bar fight and, they beat the crap out of each other. And then, the fight's over and, he extends his hand to lift the guy up off the floor and, I'll buy you a beer. No. You screw my wife, I'm not buying you a beer. That's not going to happen. It becomes very, very territorial. So it becomes so overwhelming for men. And then they have all of this background information, all these things going on behind the scenes. Their childhood comes front and center. Their parents come front and center. Their father becomes front and center. And suddenly it's extremely overwhelming for them. And they find themselves paralyzed. They are drowning in quicksand. They either stand still and they're still sinking, or they struggle and they're still sinking. And it becomes extremely overwhelming. That's kind of where I step in. And in John's case, I worked with him for a long period of time because we needed to break down what was going on for him, how he was actually feeling, because there were differences between how he felt and how he felt society thought he should feel. Those are two different things sometimes.
Certainly.
Most of the times they are, and he wanted to keep it very quiet, as did his wife. So that was good because, when a wife is cheated on, she wants to scream it from the mountaintops and she wants to let that toothpaste out of the tube, whereas men want to keep it very, very close to the chest. It's more of a struggle for men to get over it because of the territorialness of it. They suddenly look at their wife differently. I mean, women look at their husbands differently as well, but the forgiveness aspect is a little different. And that is a very delicate, could be slippery slope to go through.
Is that much more men taking it personally and kind of owning my wife, protecting my wife, and I'll fight you to the death because you did this? And
correct. And they do that externally, and women kind of like that because then they suddenly have that Disney experience where oh, he's rising, he's defending my honor, and blah blah blah, and this and that. Women can get kind of addicted to that and be like, oh, kind of thing, and they'll use that.
Yeah, because that experience can change all the many of the reasons you shared earlier. All those if those are empty cups, they get filled up by that experience of being fought over and
exactly. Exactly. And we see it in all cinema now. I mean, look at Game of Thrones and just the and the men being Men of Steel, type of thing. And we kind of do it to ourselves, these stereotypes that we pigeonhole people into. But then we also pigeonhole the reactions that people are supposed to have related to it. So men can drop into a spiral where it just starts to spiral down and spiral down and spiral down, and they really struggle. And when that happens and they turtle themselves into that shell, it's really hard to crack it. Because then they feel that their manhood is affected. And women go into a situation where they don't feel like they're good enough. Men don't quite have it the same way in that respect, at least the men that I've worked with. It's not that they don't feel like they're good enough to their wife. They don't feel like they're good enough to society. Because they haven't protected their woman. They haven't, even though they've been the protector and the provider, and they've been the strength and the pillar of strength, and I have the family and I take care of them and this and that. When this situation happens, that cracks that persona full force. And then, of course, other men aren't helpful. If they get wind of it, especially at a bar or something, suddenly, men are getting ribbed for it. Yeah, your wife stepped out on you and all this other kind of nonsense. So they really dig it in. Come on, is that really necessary? Type of thing. Or he doesn't want to say anything to anybody else because he doesn't want to have to fight off everybody else. Especially if 44% of the women who cheat with somebody they both know. It really comes down to communication, as we started to say. It does. It just does. So it starts a journey of self-forgiveness because the man has to forgive himself. He does. Whether he forgives his wife is a different story. It really starts with himself. He needs to forgive himself because he is going to start going through a checklist of everything that he didn't do right. Was I not enough of a provider? Did I not get her this thing or that thing or materialistic thing or whatever the situation is? But he's got to talk. He's got to ask those questions.
Is this journey of self-forgiveness different if the wife wants the relationship to continue or doesn't?
Yes, it's absolutely. It falls into two different categories, just as you said. So if she didn't cheat, if she cheated for all the variety of reasons, except for the fact that she wanted out of the relationship. She made a mistake. Okay. Again, I'm not condoning it. I'm not saying that that's right. Betrayal is betrayal. It just is. Cheating is cheating. It's a choice that you make. In that moment of time, you can say no. In that moment of time, you can back off and say, no. Okay. Don't want this. From a man or a woman's perspective, you can step back. You do have the choice whether you are going to cheat on your spouse. Now, if the man and the woman decide that, that wasn't the reason, that she didn't want to, leave the relationship, she wants to stay, that journey of self-forgiveness is layered, because now he has not only to forgive himself for what he feels might be his shortcomings, and it really depends on what the why is. Why did she do this? And if she expresses, well, I'm lonely and neglectful, we moved across the country, I have no friends, I have no nothing, somebody finally paid me attention, you're always working. Again, these are reasons, but they're still not excuses. He can decide, again, his choice. He can decide whether he wants to forgive her, but he has to forgive himself.
Right. Either way, the relationship's going, man has to forgive himself for this happening.
He has to forgive himself. He cannot internalize blame. He just can't. So we go back to my wonderful Viktor Frankl. And he said, when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. Profound. Absolutely profound. So if you cannot change the situation that you're in, let's say, for example, in this particular situation, you have children. You come from a broken home. Your parents got divorced. You know what that feels like as a child to have your family go through a divorce. And now your wife has stepped out. You're angry. You're going through all the emotions, but you suddenly have that situation in the back of your mind. I don't want to divorce. I do not want to put my kids through that. I will challenge myself. I cannot change the situation. I feel that I need to stay married for the benefit of my children. And I need to change because I've been challenged to do so. It's very, very important. And it's really that journey of self-forgiveness. You really have to forgive yourself first before you can look out on everything else and really decide.
In that moment of shock, when a man first discovers that his partner has betrayed him, is there something that definitely should do and or shouldn't do, or is it just unique for every situation?
It's definitely unique for every situation. I always encourage all of my clients, regardless of gender, to pause, to breathe, to give themselves space, to give themselves time. Do not make any decisions, no decisions whatsoever. Don't make a decision one way or the other way. You are too emotional, or lack of emotion, because you could have apathy, and just be completely devoid of any feeling because you've gone completely numb. That happens as well. But just to pause, to breathe, to slow it down. Very much so, because there's too much happening. There just is, and you really need to slow it down. And then you need to regain control. You need to rebuild trust, and trust is layer by layer. It's brick by brick. It does not happen overnight. It does not at all. And that requires certain things that we spoke about in episode 301, complete transparency, complete opportunity that you are completely honest. Everything, you lay it all on the table. You communicate. Communication is such a key, and we circle back to exactly where we started, where communication is absolutely key. And you need to step out of the shadows. because you will turtle yourself in. And that hard shell, yeah, it's hard to get anybody in there. Very, very much so. What helps for most of the men that I work with and what I suggest is definitely support groups, without a doubt. The camaraderie of talking to another man who has been through a similar experience speaks volumes. That's why 12-step programs are so needed and so beneficial, because of that sponsorship situation that you have. Just knowing that another man, you can come out of the shadows and kind of talk about this, because again, there's that shame aspect that society has put on men related to this topic. And it's definitely, they need to ground themselves in any kind of self-care practice that they enjoy. They really need to pause. They should not bury this. They have to face it. And sometimes facing this means facing things from the past as well. And that's okay. It's absolutely okay, because maybe some of those things from the past were meant to be here front and center now, so that you can deal with it wiser than you were back then when you initially went through that experience. Now you have wisdom, and now you can pivot and see it from a different angle, and maybe clean up all those things, which will then help you deal with the betrayal.
So it sounds like daring to do this alone makes it infinitely more challenging.
Oh, yeah. Anything you do alone, you might feel like you're doing it faster, but you're not. You're really not. And basically what you're doing is you're shoveling the dirt on a little faster, because all you're doing is burying it. You're not dealing with it. And you need to deal with it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because men by nature, we have the mask that we have it all figured out and we don't need anybody. But when you need somebody and you meet other men that are going through or have been through that same situation, I personal experience, there's such a release, there's such a relief. And knowing that others can survive things, that gives you the hope that, oh, maybe I can see my way through this as well too. So yeah, there's tremendous power in men's groups for men, because it's so rare that we would publicly share.
Exactly. And it's important to do so. And, that's why Facebook is really interesting, because now you have the opportunity to post anonymously. So, if you don't want to put your name on there, that's fine, absolutely. But get that support that you need. Not that I'm advocating Facebook groups. I want to be very, very cautious on that. If you're going to join a Facebook group, make sure it's really small, like under 3,000, maybe even under 1,000 members, because anything bigger than that, unfortunately, you have to deal with judgment. And in this very vulnerable state of being betrayed, you do not need the judgment of everybody else. No, you need the understanding ear. You need the camaraderie. And just as you said, talking to someone else that has been through your experience, it's just like, thank you. You have your shit together. I'm going to get there. Now there's hope. I now have hope. And that's the best thing. So
I talk to so many men that a relationship ends, and those are the guys that choose to just go the opposite way and shut down, and all women suck. You can't trust anybody. And there's such a danger in falling into that overgeneralizing and thinking that whatever your situation was is how everything shall be from this day forward. And that's when working with somebody that can kind of witness and is outside and not so charged can just benefit tremendously.
Yes, very, very much so. So we're going to end with my favorite, again, man's search for meaning. Everything can be taken from a man. Everything can be taken from a man, but one thing: the last of the human freedoms to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. Profound words. Mm-hmm. Absolutely brilliant. And this was written, as we know, decades ago, but this This is a Bible for a lot of men, and it's extremely, extremely valuable. And I encourage all of my clients to read it, very much so.
Beautiful. So Vanessa, what's the best way for people to find out more about what you offer?
Well, first off is my website, understandingear.com. There is a large section for betrayed men on there. You can always reach out to me as well through my website. I am on Instagram, trusted_advisor_for_betrayal. So you can always find me on Instagram as well. Again, for men who have been betrayed, I am the best kept secret. So it's not something that I'm like, woohoo, here I am type of thing, because I want men to feel comfortable reaching out to me. And it's always, of course, with the strictest confidence as well. And I've worked with men for as long as 18 months. And I know that seems like a long duration, but when you go through betrayal, some men, decide to leave their relationship, and then they start the dating. And when you start dating after betrayal, there's a whole different set of circumstances. And as you mentioned, having this generalization of, well, every woman's going to hurt me, type of thing, we need to kind of move through those limiting beliefs and whatnot. And I've worked with men for as little as, 3-4 sessions just to get them over that hump of, I just need to talk. I just need to talk and get this out. And usually our conclusion is, it's great that you've spoken to me and I've helped you kind of articulate your words, but now you need to speak to your wife. That's who you need to share this with. And if she's not receptive to it, then we need to have a conversation, the three of us. But usually by that point, they're comfortable enough in speaking their truth, because that's what it is. They need to speak their truth. They usually then subsequently move on.
So it sounds like all best actions and outcomes, communication. It keeps coming back. And back to the intro of the show. If you're a man that was raised and taught and told that you're supposed to stuff and deny and not share, not have feelings to begin with, you're setting yourself up for a life of despair.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I noticed the first time you're on two episodes ago, more comments than normal, all across YouTube, across realmanfeel.org, and the blog post, but all the comments were from women.
Mm-hmm.
And this helps get all the stats that I can see from any sort of platform that breaks it down. There are more male listeners than female, but far more female people will stand up in public and say, I listened to this show and I got something from this show. So men, if you haven't listened to the prior show with Vanessa, do so. You don't need to be a perpetrator or a victim of betrayal to get gold out of this information. Because again, it comes back to communication. It comes back to enjoying that pause, not being overreactive, not just jumping into anger if that's what you're prone to do. It's not just jumping into shame if you feel like you've been blamed or it's anything's your fault. A relationship ending does not make a failure out of anybody.
No, Dan Savage said it best. Oh my God, he had the best quote. He was talking about divorce and how, when people comment on divorce, people are like, oh, I'm so sorry, this and that. And he's like, no, we should be congratulating them. You survived X number of years. That's great. And you both made the decision to divorce. Kudos to you. Congratulations on being in a long-term relationship for X number of years. Congrats. And I love that. I'm like, yes, that's exactly it. Because if you lost your spouse to death, people would say, oh, you were married for 30 years, congratulations. That's okay. But if you say, oh, I've been married for 30 years, but we got divorced. Oh, I'm so sorry. You know what? Wait a second. No. Why is it different whether the spouse died or the spouse moved on, with someone else?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
And earlier this year, we had a show on being happily divorced because I met a man that introduced himself that way. And ideally, it is the best decision for all involved. Ideally, any decision a couple makes is the best decision for all involved. So yeah, there's no reason to be, I'm so sorry you made a decision. Like, no.
Exactly. No, this is great. You made a decision. Yeah. That in and of itself, because sometimes we get paralyzed in making a decision. And that's usually what I need to work with my clients, all my clients on, is making that decision. Whether you stay in your relationship or you move on from your relationship is inconsequential to me as a trusted advisor. It makes no difference to me either way. What I want for my clients is that they've made a decision and that they're comfortable with the decision that they've made. They're not wishy-washy about it and whatnot. They're comfortable with it. It's not going to be 100%. You can't make a decision on anything that's 100%. But in this situation, if you're 85% comfortable leaning in this direction, and that's the direction you want to go in, then jump in, and do so.
Yeah. Yeah. I find so much the most beneficial part of coaching, receiving coaching, being a client of anything is making decisions, moving forward, not just, me on my own. When I'm down and bad, I will stay stuck and in apathy for as long as life will let me.
Mm-hmm.
But when I work with someone to get pushed and prodded and reminded of the value I add, the goodness that's in me, that often we can't see, that's just what matters most. And, I believe everybody makes the best decision they can in any circumstance, but it doesn't mean that is the best decision for, the rest of your life or for a relationship or anything like that. So yeah, self-forgiveness, nothing can happen without that.
Right. And you continue to move on. And what we do as humans and ourselves is that we don't invest in ourselves. You're a dog owner. I'm a dog owner. Anything happened to Scout? Oh my gosh, you're there at the vet just like that. Whatever she needs, she can have it all. No problem whatsoever. But you, do you invest in yourself? You do. I do. But the average people don't invest in themselves.
Right.
And that's a really big concern. You need to invest in yourself. Yeah. You need those people around you to lift you up, to show you your own potential. We all see it. Sometimes it's hard to see it yourself, especially if you're in the jar, you can't see the label.
Right. Yeah. When you're in a bucket of mud, you think you're mud.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Vanessa, thanks so much. I am sure we will talk again.
I look forward to it.
So full of wisdom and insights and just real world help and service. So thanks for everyone listening. Thanks. To be sure and check out prior shows, everything that Vanessa mentioned, as well as her prior appearance. Visit visit realmenfeel.org. See the blog post for this episode. We'll have links to all the various links, books, and resources mentioned. Wherever you're discovering Real Men Feel, please subscribe, follow, like, share with someone, post a review, a comment, especially if you're a man. You can always reach out to me at realmenfeel@gmail.com. Be good to yourself, forgive yourself, and live your best fucking life possible. Be well.